I was 22 years old, and I'm walking on the boardwalk on the bike path in Venice, and I hear a voice. Hey, looking good. And I'm like, whoa, I turn, it's him, it's Arnold with Maria Shriver, the kids on their bikes. I'm like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, wow, that just happened. And then sure enough, he turns around and comes up to me, stops me, shakes my hand, has me posing for him. It was incredible, like a 22-year-old kid, and this is happening. And he's like, you look fantastic, turn around, let me see your back, show me your calves. Like,
you do that perfect.
It was, well, he did it to me.
Yeah.
And I was like so elated. I'm like, any thought of me stopping competing just ended. Because, you know, if Arnold thinks I look great.
You're giving props by the GOAT.
Right.
It's crazy.
So that lit a fire under me for sure. Then you fast forward 17 years later, I'm on his stage. I was benching 315 at 14 years old.
Wow.
That's some heavy weight.
Yeah, I was a sophomore, and I was basically the strongest kid in school. And, I used that as fuel to keep getting better and better and better. I was actually drug tested my sophomore year. I got pulled out of algebra class. You got to go down to the athletic director's office, and I'm there with my football coach, and the AD's like, we got to test him. And the guy's like, what? He's 14 years old. She's like, I don't care, because I had veins everywhere. Looking back, I'd probably think I was on something too. But I didn't have money for that. I didn't know where to get it. I didn't know anything about it at that time. Right. So they took me to a health stop, tested me. Obviously, I was negative. And, my coach made sure that every teacher got one in their mailbox, like the results of it. So when I was failing in those times, and I was placing 13th, 11th, I finally was like, I'm not working hard enough. So I started doing hours upon hours of cardio and just focusing on that goal. And sure enough, my body changed. A lot of it was an age thing too. It just takes time. Bodybuilding is not like baseball, where you can refine your swing and you'll get better and better quickly. Bodybuilding takes years to add slabs of meat on your body. It doesn't happen over one summer. And eventually my brother started competing, and I didn't know how I felt about it. I know I loved watching it and looking at the magazines, but I didn't know how I felt about getting on stage in trunks.
I feel the same thing right now, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Nate and all the crew over there getting me ready for that. And every time I think about it, I start getting nervous. But that drives me to try to work harder.
Yeah.
To make sure that I show up in a way that's not embarrassing to myself.
Yeah. The most important thing is that you're happy with yourself and you're happy with what you've been able to accomplish. You've already done an amazing job, lost 200 pounds. Now you're digging in.
And welcome to the Apex Lifestyles Podcast. I'm your host, Bob GDMD, and I'm here as always with my co-host,
Dennis V. How are you today, Bob?
Fantastic, man.
It's a great day out here in Massachusetts.
It is, but before we get started, I want to just kind of give a heads up to the people out in the West Coast and the Palisades fire. And I mean, it's just devastating out there.
Absolutely devastating. Just so unfortunate. A lot of people are really struggling, and we just send our thoughts and prayers and everything out to everybody out there in California.
Yeah, and Apex Lifestyles, we'll post something a little bit later.
Absolutely.
About how we're going to help out, and hopefully we can at least get a little bit of relief out there.
100%.
That'd be great. But with that, today we have an amazing guest.
The fire's in the house today.
Yeah, the thunder rolled in all the way from Peabody, Mass.
That's what we're talking
right?
about.
And we have the Boston, Mass here in studio today. Mr. Jose Raymond, winner of the 2015 Arnold Classic, and multiple appearances at on the Olympia stage. And Jose, we're going to talk about everything that it takes to get to be the best. And that's just it. I mean, you were the best in the world at what you were doing. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
When we're saying Boston Strong, you're a brick.
Yeah.
You're a solid guy. This is Boston Strong right here in the office. Great to have you. Thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's an amazing story, and we'll kind of delve into it a little bit. You and I met, I guess in August.
Yeah, a few months ago at Gym Hub.
Yeah, Gym Hub, and I had gone through my transformation. I'm trying to put the cherry on top, and I'm kind of trying to live vicariously through you guys. And I needed to get in a room where I was around people that were way better than me. I needed to get inspiration and learn. And I sought out Nate Tello and asked him to be my coach. And you happen to hang around at Gym Hub a lot.
Yeah,
you're there all the time. And
yeah.
We've become acquainted, and you've been so gracious to come on the show and kind of share some thoughts about becoming the best at something and becoming living a life at the apex.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
And so let's delve in a little bit. You were born in Boston.
Yep.
And you're the youngest of eight.
Eight. Yep.
Yeah, 8 kids, right?
Yeah.
And why don't you talk about that a little bit? You and your brother Tito had a little bit of a time growing up.
Yeah, I was born December 29th, 1974 at Brigham Women's Hospital. And at the time, my family, my parents, didn't have a place to live. So they were basically squatting in like an abandoned apartment building in late December. You know what that can be like?
Yeah,
it's
sure.
freezing. So someone reported it, and that there was a newborn baby there. And then there was a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. Me, my brother Tito, my sister Lily. So we were all put in foster care right away, and eventually a family adopted us, me and Tito together. So we were able to be raised together, and that was the Raymonds, and that's where I got my name.
There you go.
Yeah, I was born Sotomayor, and
Okay.
now I've been a Raymond. But it was there's a lot more to it than that, but that was the gist of it. I lived everywhere from Jamaica Plain, Quincy, in different foster care, Wakefield, Mass. Then eventually went back to Chicago with my family, my biological family. They came and took us, for lack of better words. I don't want to say kidnap, but they didn't do it legally. They
Right.
took the 3 youngest, took us back to Chicago. After about 2 years there, I guess one of my uncles reported it and took us back to Boston, where finally me and Tito were officially adopted. And then that's kind of what led us to sports and eventually weight training. We had behavioral issues, and a social worker of ours recommended, got us a punching bag and some weights and was like, take it out on that.
Yeah.
And that really led to something quickly. I was always known as the big kid with the big hands and big muscle, even though I was shorter than my buddies, I was always bigger than everyone. And that was, even as a kid, 12 years old. I was 150 pounds at 12 years old. And it really skyrocketed us into, sports. My brother went on to get a full scholarship for football, and I went on to play college football, and I wrestled in high school. And, it led me to have confidence in myself. Where as a young kid, it's kind of confusing. You don't know where you come from, where, what you're supposed to be doing, how you don't look like all the other kids. I grew up in a town of all Italian and Irish, and, here comes 2 Puerto Ricans, and it didn't mesh well in the late 70s, early 80s. And, but eventually we got great friends, surrounded us, great families. Wakefield's a really beautiful town with a lot of great families. And that's the best I can say is I got to be raised around a lot of amazing people that cared about us, and made sure that we were fed and looked after. I had coaches paying for my football cleats, paying for my football camps so that I could do all the things the other kids were doing. And, that's what led to it. And eventually my brother started competing, and I didn't know how I felt about it. I know I loved watching it and looking at the magazines, but I didn't know how I felt about getting on stage in trunks,
I feel the same thing right now, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Nate and all the crew over there getting me ready for that. And every time I think about it, I start getting nervous. But that drives me to try to work harder.
Yeah.
To make sure that I show up in a way that's not embarrassing to myself,
Yeah. The most important thing is that you're happy with yourself and you're happy with what you've been able to accomplish. Because ultimately, there's always going to be someone that doesn't like you or that doesn't think you look good or, it's up to you. And the sooner you can get that mindset of not caring what anyone else thinks, the further you can go and the quicker you can get there. Because ultimately, people in this world can be cruel, can be jealous, or, you've already done an amazing job, lost 200 pounds. Now you're digging into the...
Now it's deep.
Yeah.
Going deep. Your body gets used to being able to conserve energy, so you got to just work harder and be more strict and all those things,
Yeah, but try to enjoy it. If it's awful and all you're thinking about is like, can I have a cookie? Can I have... No. Then it can be a very arduous task.
Yeah.
But if you wake up every day and look at yourself and you see a little change here, a little change there... It's enough to push you on to the next day.
Did that happen for you young? When you started training?
As far as what?
Like when you started doing bodybuilding, right? You said you watched Tito do it.
Yeah.
And you weren't sure about doing it yourself, but then how did you end up? Was it like you were training alongside with them?
Yes.
You'd see little bits of improvement
exactly
day by day, and that's like self-reinforcing, right?
Yeah.
Right? Is that how it happened for you?
Yeah. At first, it was about getting stronger and getting bigger, and that happened relatively quickly. And I noticed that, I was stronger than everyone in my class. I was benching 315 at 14 years old.
Wow, that's some heavy weight.
Yeah, I was a sophomore, and I was basically the strongest kid in school. And, I used that as fuel to keep getting better and better and better. I was actually drug tested my sophomore year. I got pulled out of algebra class. You got to go down to the athletic director's office. And I'm there with my football coach, and the AD's like, we got to test him. And the guy's like, what? He's 14 years old. She's like, I don't care, because I had veins everywhere. I looking back, I'd probably think I was on something too. But I didn't have money for that. I didn't know where to get it. I didn't know anything about it at that time.
Right. So
they took me to a health stop, tested me. Obviously, I was negative, and my coach made sure that every teacher got one in their mailbox, like the results of my test.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, because that was almost like a passive aggressive way to say, hey, leave the kid alone.
Right, and it was probably whispers going from teacher to teacher. That little kid's a juice ball,
Yeah.
But I didn't know anything about it. But so I was training with my brother every day, watching what he was doing. We would practice posing, and finally I was like, all right, I can do it. And then I went on. I did the New Englands in 1993. I was 18, and I won the teenage overall. And back then, we had quite a bit of teenagers. Nowadays, you might get one or two. We had like 10.
Yeah, what do we have at the NPC back in November? How many? There was like 2.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But, it was a little more popular back then. And I went on to do the Teenage Nationals, where I placed second in Fort Lauderdale. And, and then it just went from there, slowly, gradually. I did my first open national show at 20, and I got obliterated. Like, I placed 13th in my first show. Went back the next year, I placed 11th. Next year, I was getting really disappointed because as a teen, I won almost every show I did.
Yeah. How did you deal? I mean, I'm going to circle back to something you said, that you're getting ready to hop on stage. Nothing at this point is a failure, because in everything that you do, and I abide to this every day. You need to look yourself in the mirror every day.
Yeah.
And say to yourself, I'm going to put in my all. And at the end of the day, you got to check yourself and you know you're doing it. But you're coming in 11th, 13th.
Yeah.
But you're probably looking at those as setbacks.
I was, but I had great people around me, which has always been important to me. I've already said it numerous times here. And I met a guy named Chris Faldo who was 30 at the time, and he won my class. And he saw me and my head was down. I was like, bummed out, and he come over, put his arm around me, and he's like, you're going to be special. He's like, you're not just good, you're going to be special. He's like, keep your head up and don't let this get to you. He's like, you're a baby. I was 20, he was 30. 10 years in bodybuilding is massive.
But he probably saw what it meant to you,
Yeah.
the fire in your eyes.
Yeah.
And I want to back up just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
First of all, so my life has been devoted to education. I've worked with at-risk students.
Yeah.
Kind of going through a lot of the things that you've been through.
Yeah.
Props to you for all that you've done.
Yeah.
But something that really stood out to me is when you started to get involved doing sports, activities, whatever, you started to build your confidence.
Yep.
It's something that I always try to say to kids is you got to find something.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when people struggle, it's they don't find something that's meaningful to them. What did that do for you overall when you just really found that sports, working out, and everything, how did that change? Is it safe to say that kind of changed your mindset and attitude towards a lot of things?
Absolutely. It gave me a purpose, and it gave me work ethic. Like I was doing things that a lot of the other kids weren't doing. You know, I would go and do sprints, hills, and run all summer to prepare for the upcoming football season. And a lot of the kids didn't. And I would be in the gym and I'd train every day. And I started creating my own group of guys that I would take with me who aren't weightlifters and probably never touched a weight again after that. But I got them in the gym with me. And, that was something that I developed as a young person out of frustration. Like when I would zero in on something, I would be so focused. I would do it to almost a fault. You know what I mean? Here's an example, and I've told this before, I think. It was my duty to fill the wood box. We had a wood burning stove. And again, back in the 70s and 80s, early 80s, some racial slurs were not uncommon. And, I had a nickname, Spicky. Hey, Spicky, you got to fill the wood box. And I would get so pissed off. So one day I filled like my entire living room with wood. I'm like, yeah, you want some wood? So I just got so mad that I must have done 20 trips, and I stacked it to the ceiling. My father came in and was like, what the hell is this? And I was just pissed, and I told him. He's like, oh, whatever. But that's an example of like when I would get zeroed in on something, I would do it all day long, or I would overdo it just to see what would happen. So when I was failing in those times, and I was placing 13th, 11th, I finally was like, I'm not working hard enough. So I started doing hours upon hours of cardio and just focusing on that goal. And sure enough, my body changed. A lot of it was an age thing too. It just takes time. Bodybuilding is not like a baseball, where you can refine your swing and you'll get better and better quickly. Bodybuilding takes years to add slabs of meat on your body. It doesn't happen over one summer. You might make improvements, but to get there, it takes year after year after year of that absolutely zoned in dedication and focus.
And it's something you just can't take the time. You like have to stay committed. And
Yeah.
When you take that time off, it's interesting you say that because I remember like leaving college at 18 years old, and the next year I played basketball. You develop so much, and you're like, God, if I was this good when I played in high school, this strong, because you just start to physically mature. You
Yeah.
start to turn into a man, and it happens quick. So I would see where as a teenager it would be a little bit that much more difficult to get yourself where you need to be.
Yeah, and I was really young for my class because my birthday's December 29th. So I graduated. I played varsity football at 14, 15, and 16, where nowadays kids are playing 16, 17, 18, or even more, 17, 18, 19. So I was like 2 years behind where I could have been physically and mentally if I was held back a little bit.
In contact sports like that, 14 to 18 is
massive.
It's unbelievable. And basically you were a full 4 years behind.
Yeah. Well, two at least, yeah.
But, because if they're 18 years old and you went to high school at 13.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a young guy.
Oh yeah. I was, but physically I was pretty big. At least I thought I was. I was probably 165 pounds at 14, and then like 175, 180 my senior year. And had I waited another 2 years, I would have been 200 pounds as a senior in high school.
Were you big in goal setting back then? Because I'm sure as you've gotten, you'll get into it a little bit, but when you were younger, were you start goal setting? Were you just, what was your approach and how has it changed over the years?
I didn't realize it at the time, but I was in my own way. And particularly because I had my older brother that really spent a lot of time talking to me and making sure that my head was straight or as straight as it could be, and he was the one that would, late at night, we'd be up late talking and I'd be harassing him. He's trying to sleep and I'm on the floor in his bedroom talking to him. But that's when, those goals were set. We said, we will never live like this. We will never live in the situations that we were going through at the time. And we'll do everything it takes in our power to, provide a good life for ourselves. And that sticks in my head to this day of always, it was like a mantra, like no matter what we have to do, we're not going to live like this.
Working with similar students that struggle, sometimes when struggle, it's very tough to get out of the cycle of struggle.
Yeah.
What do you think what do you think got you out of the struggle?
Well, I'm going to be candid on this podcast here. I'm not out of the struggle. I've gone through things in the last few years that I don't wish on anyone. And sometimes not of my own fault, but ultimately of my own fault because I chose to be in certain situations that it's still a work in progress. But I've been able to do things, some fantastic things, to give myself a good life and reflect and be able to get better. And I underwent counseling for a long time, which I found to be extremely helpful. Just someone to sit and talk to and that will give me ideas of how to handle certain situations. And, nobody's perfect. And that's something, the older you get, the more you realize it. Like, you look it up at celebrities, that guy's got it all. He's got the women, the money, the cars, the house, whatever. He's still struggling.
Yeah. You know Daryl McDaniels from Run DMC?
Yeah, you guys had him on, right?
We did, yeah. He's actually, friends with Dennis. And why don't you tell him about that? I mean, it's very similar to what he's just talking about, right?
So what's very interesting is a colleague at the college got his book, 10 Ways Not to Commit Suicide. Do you know him? And I said, not really. And before he knew it, we connected. And I talked to him, and all he wanted to know about was the students I work with and everything. And we talked about the mission, which my whole life has been working with individuals that struggle. He's at the top of his game, mid-30s, the first to do just about everything in hip-hop, first to get a sneaker deal. All he wanted to do was kill himself. That's the only thing that was on his mind. And in the midst of this, he's doing a VH1 video, and they asked him about the day he was born. And called his mom. She hung up. Dad called back, said, "You're adopted." Everybody in the community but him knew he was adopted.
Wow.
And it started that. But the power of counseling, and I mean, I'm 52. In our day, it wasn't.
It was kind of taboo.
100%.
He talked about that right in this room.
Yeah.
He said, when you talk about it, you heal. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent of that too. I think more of us have to be a voice, especially for men, to be able to be okay with it.
Right.
Well, because you hold it in here, and I mean, growing up, I think you say it's not the cool thing to talk about. I mean, I have high anxiety. If I don't talk, it sits right there. And that's a great message to get out to the people, is just the importance of to have the right mindset and to be in your best space.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not your best friend or whoever that helps you, your brother. It's somebody that has nothing to do with you, and it's healing.
Yeah.
And the other part is something that you go through challenges, and I think it's important for everybody to know. Everybody goes through challenges. It's how you get through them, and sometimes it's the gut check. Sometimes it's getting support from others, and because the supports are out there, and that's a good message to people that you're at the top. You have been at the number one in the world, top of your game, and still you struggle in life, and it happens, and you got to fight through.
Yeah. Well, I think of it as a way of investing into yourself. I want to be better. I want to make myself better. I always want to be the best version of myself. I have some setbacks, and I go forward, and it's okay to have a setback. It's almost imperative sometimes. That's how you learn. And I see nothing wrong with it. And we're all around the same age. I just turned 50. That's it is. Hitting 50. That's real. And I think the older you get, the less you care what people think. It's certainly not taboo. It's not like I'm bipolar or something, which is okay too. It's a disease, but it's more that I want to understand myself better. And, we spent so much time with the therapist talking about what we just talked about, my upbringing and, more specific, detailed situations that have happened. And to try to unlock something. And I found it really interesting, very helpful. And, I'll continue to try to improve myself moving forward. Hopefully we all do, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't think we're ever done, right?
Right. No.
We're never finished.
No.
Yeah.
It's funny. Turning it to teaching for a second, I've always worked very well with students that struggle, and I always think that I have a very well structured opportunity. And then they keep you honest. All of a sudden, the curveball comes in, keeps you honest. You always have to be aware of the unexpected, and sometimes that unexpected is us as human beings. That a lot of curveballs are sent to us in life, and you don't know where they're coming, but you have to be ready to adjust and try to make some changes so that you can. And that's my favorite line, by the way, to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
it's amazing. So let's shift a little bit. Let's go toward 2009, right? Isn't that your first?
My first year as a pro.
Your first year as a pro.
Yep.
Tell us about that. Tell us about the run up. You did a bunch of NPC stuff and national stuff, and now you're getting your pro card. Yeah.
Well, I'll start even before that because it's something I'm really proud of and quite possibly will never be broken. I won 8 national titles as an amateur.
Wow.
I won the lightweights at the USAs, the lightweights at the nationals, lightweights at the welterweight at USA's, welterweight at nationals, middleweight, kept moving up.
Wow.
Middleweight, USA, and nationals. Won the universe twice. And nowadays, you get a pro card and it's instant. Like they put it on their Instagram. It's a label. Where back then, we didn't have social media. So I had no reason to take the pro card. I was like, why am I going to do that? I'm only 150 pounds. So I waited and kept building until I was big enough to be competitive, and they created a newer division, which I thought at the time I played a role in because people like me were declining my pro card. And so lo and behold, 2007, I accept the pro card. Less than a month later, I broke my leg. And I went from 176 pounds to 266. I put on 90 pounds in like 3 months because I was in a cast, a boot for over 3 months. And depression hit. I'm like, what am I going to do now? I was just the best amateur in the country for years. And now I don't know if I'll ever be able to train again. So that was devastating. I end up finally stop feeling sorry for myself and get moving. And lo and behold, I can train. And I could, not only could I train, but my body was responding because I'd never taken a break. I never rested. And then my legs started growing like crazy. So I knew I could do it. I went in again, starting at the bottom. I got blown out. I think I placed 7th in my first pro show. And then I went on to change the game, change the rules. I was competing naturally.
Yep.
That was a big thing between me and my brother. I wanted to see if I could be the best natural bodybuilder in the world. And I was close. And then I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm with guys that I know I can beat, but they're beating me just because they have a little advantage. So after that first show, I decided to join them, and then things changed. I went on to qualify for the Olympia. So this is all in like a 3-4 month period. I qualified for the Olympia, and then I was in the first call out at my first Olympia.
Wow.
I ended up placing 6th my first year. I went on to do 10 years in a row. And I placed top 3 4 times. I was second in 2015. And, I was one of the best for sure. I cannot claim that I was the best because there was one guy that beat me.
Yeah.
And, his name is Flex Lewis.
Yeah.
And he's unbelievable. He is truly the best. One could argue that I was close, but regardless, when you're competing against the best guys in the world and you're placing in the top 2, top 3 consistently, you're definitely
amongst the best
in the conversation.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
And they're probably looking over the shoulder at you.
Oh, yeah. I use that term often. I always said I was the one that Flex looked over his shoulder the most at.
Of course, because when you're ahead, there's somebody knocking down the doors.
Yeah.
And you go back to, there's a lot of other reasons. Whoever thought Tyson would get knocked off?
Yeah,
or
right.
Buster Douglas, because there's always people behind. So I'm sure that Flex looks back and that's a guy that pushed me to keep going.
Yeah, he was phenomenal too, and we all made each other better. We had a core group of guys that traveled the world together. We were everywhere, from Korea, Japan, all over Europe, and competing together against each other. But when we're not on stage, we're going out to dinner, going out to lunch, spending time, going out to clubs, partying, whatever. We spend a lot of time together. So when I do podcasts, oftentimes I get goaded into trying to talk crap about Flex.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, I don't want to talk about this. I'm like, but I'll do it in a respectful manner. I love the guy, and we were all very close. So we all still are today.
I'm assuming when you guys were all out, you'd be training together too.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah.
That must have been a fun way to push each other, right?
Yeah. And the fans loved it because we'd make YouTube videos of us training together, and they'd get a ton of views. People... And they like to get to know you. We don't just sit home all day and train and eat. There's other aspects in our lives.
Yeah.
I showed a lot of my home when I was renovating my home. People love that. That stuff gets the most views.
Yeah, for sure. Because it humanizes you, you know?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Can I just
go ahead.
when you're in the top 3 and you're with these guys, and to be in the top 3 in the world, you have your blueprint, you have your map. Were you still looking around, looking for ideas and things that they may do that helped you to get better? Did you learn from each other? Did you share ways?
I'm sure, yes. There were certain things that we did, but I had been competing so long at that time. I ended up competing 27 years. That's a long time.
It's a long time.
That's a big run.
So
yeah.
I learned more things, like my presentation with posing and different ways to prepare for that day, that moment on stage. Things like preparing your skin, things that people don't think about. Things, hair removal. People, they're like, it's easy, I'll just shave it. No, I couldn't shave. I'd get razor burn. I'd get razor bumps all over my legs. So I had to get waxed. So I learned that early on. And I got waxed like on a Tuesday. And then I would slowly start putting my color on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and compete on Saturday.
Yeah.
And these are things you just figure out through the years. Some guys didn't have the same approach, and I always had the best color. I knew what they were doing, whether it worked or not, versus what I was doing. So, and I wouldn't necessarily tell them everything that I was doing.
Yeah, of course. You don't want to give them the secret sauce.
Yeah,
right?
and vice versa. There were certain things that they were doing that they didn't. But absolutely, we tried to learn from each other as much as we could, if it was something that was going to be helpful, obviously.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to we didn't touch upon it, but down at Gym Hub, there's a big photo as you're walking out.
Yeah.
Right? You're holding a trophy.
That's Nate and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right? That's you and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about that?
It's funny because people ask Nate all the time, is that you?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'll be standing there and they're asking if it's him.
Yeah.
Well, that was almost 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years in March. I had hair, a full head of hair, and I was big as a house. That was phenomenal. I did the Arnold Classic 5 years in a row. I can tell a story quickly. Back in 1998, I had just competed out in Redondo Beach, California, and I placed like 5th. And I'm like, I'm done with this stuff. I was really considering stopping. I was 22 years old. And I'm walking on the boardwalk, on the bike path in Venice, and I hear a voice, like, hey, looking good. And I'm like, whoa. I turn, it's him, it's Arnold with Maria Shriver, the kids on their bikes. I'm like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, wow, that just happened. And then sure enough, he turns around and comes up to me, stops me, shakes my hand, has me posing for him. And it was incredible. Like a 22-year-old kid, and this is happening. And he's like, you look fantastic. Turn around. Let me see your back. Show me your calves. Like,
You do that perfect.
It was, well, he did it to me.
Yeah.
And I was like so elated. I'm like, any thought of me stopping competing just ended. Because, if Arnold thinks I look great.
You're giving props by the GOAT.
Right.
That's crazy.
So that lit a fire under me for sure. Then you fast forward 17 years later, I'm on his stage. He's handing me a trophy. And when he does it, he does a little interview.
Yeah.
And there's people in the crowd yelling, tell him the story. Tell him.
Yeah.
So I'm like, can I tell you a quick story? And he's like, 17 years ago, I saw you on the boardwalk, on the bike path in Venice. And I was considering quitting. And because of you, I'm here today, 17 years later, winning your show. And it was awesome. It was an awesome moment for people. I'd been on podcasts telling that story.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I get to win the show and tell him face to face.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible. So, of course, I looked up to Arnold as a kid and loved all his movies. And
Everybody in this room did.
yeah, of
for
course.
Sure,
yeah. Well, everyone on Earth.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you know, and just to get to meet him, I've met him a few times, and it was pretty incredible. And, you know, that picture lives forever. I may be old, fat, and bald, but I got that picture.
Yeah,
It's
right.
a great picture.
Yeah,
with one of the,
yeah.
At 22, I actually met Arnold. I was at the LA Forum watching them play the Lakers.
Wow.
They were sitting about 15 rows in front of me, and I duck in about through all of his bodyguards, gave him a quick dap in the back, and I just about thrown out in my ear.
Wow.
He was a very nice guy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
With he and Maria, and it was, but no, just he was really kind.
Yeah, it's crazy. He usually does have a ton of security with him.
Oh yeah.
He would come and visit each booth at the Arnold Classic at the Expo, and he'd have to get escorted with a big crew of security and police, and I don't know if I'd want to be that popular.
No, you think about that though. 22 years old, which is kind of a real pivotal role for young men.
Yeah.
Where it's time to go do something else.
Yeah.
And that was meant to be you guys connecting that day. In
No,
Venice
without a
Beach,
doubt.
Because that right there led to, I mean, what would your path be like otherwise?
Right.
You ever think about that? Like if I
Yeah.
went this way and it was out, and the opportunities missed. So it's great that you connected and talk about circling back in life that you're able to share with them. Hey,
Yeah.
this is what I did. What is give me a real defining moment in your career?
That would probably, I don't know, that's one of them for sure. And then that later on that year, going toe to toe with Flex Lewis, who's the best in the world. He and I came up together. We competed 10 years in a row together. In 2011, I actually beat him at the New York Pro. So that may have been the real turning point of my pro career. I had already had a few wins, but this kid was labeled the next big thing. And I was like, I'm like, watch this. And I end up beating him. And I never beat him again after that. But in 2015, I was second to him. And very rarely at the Olympia will they do just a two-man call-out. They'll do like either the top 3 or 4, but it's rare that they do just 2. That means you two are so far ahead of the pack, we're going to take a look at you. And it's very close. So we had a two-man call-out in the 2015 Olympia. And that also was a big turning point because, he was clearly the one. And I was there. People were like, oh, my God, they don't know what to do. It was a really close call. So win or lose, he won more money than I did that day. But I think we both won that day.
You got people thinking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're sitting there saying, that's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So how did that, that inner child, that kid that grew up, in Boston and then to Chicago and then back to Boston, do you ever think about that kid and where you ended up, and how does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I'm still conflicted. I'm still I live in that body. I live in that brain. I live in that cage. It's I don't see myself as someone who made it or who did anything spectacular. Even when I won the Arnold Classic, you'll see people that are break down and cry and fall to the floor, and I just put my hand up like that and was like, I never was able to let myself get extremely happy or extremely sad. So I try to stay as level as possible, probably due to some past trauma,
Yeah.
So I don't see myself as having made it. I still have a lot that I need to do. I still have a lot that I want to do. But, on the other hand, I know that things could have gone a lot worse and that I worked my tail off to be productive and be great at something. And like I said before, I may not have been the greatest, but I was definitely great at what I did.
Yeah.
And how I went about it, and the consistency at which I did it at. I had 8 national titles, as I said, and 12 pro wins. Very few people get 12 pro wins. And if they do, they're usually, an Olympia champ.
Yeah.
I definitely am proud of the things that I accomplished. But I don't think about it too much. I don't get caught up in it. I don't, the success I had isn't going to pay my bills for the next year.
Yeah.
It's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I got you.
And what I'm, striving to do. I have to be better. I can't live off of that. It's, bodybuilding is not NFL football.
Right.
And we were talking, a friend of mine were talking just yesterday of how sad it is. Think about it. If you're the best NFL football player or one of the best NFL football, you're set for life. You're set for NBA, basketball, Major League Baseball, any sport. But in bodybuilding, there's an 8-time Mr. Olympia out there right now who is borderline crippled and has to still work and work hard to provide for his family and survive.
Yeah, but what a nice guy he is. I met him at the Boston Pro a couple of years ago when they had
that's
that.
right.
Yeah, and I still remember I was kind of like I don't really get starry-eyed around celebrities, right? But he's definitely one of the best celebrities in bodybuilding ever.
Yeah.
And I still remember getting down on a knee to take a picture with him, and I felt like wow, you could see the amount of damage that he sustained. You could see the pain in his eyes still.
He must have had 10 surgeries, back, hip.
But what a nice guy, man.
Oh, and he's happy to be there, and he's hard at work there. You saw he had a little booth with all his merchandise. And he still has to do that.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate because, obviously not as many people follow bodybuilding as they do NFL football.
Right.
But my point of this whole thing is I need to work. I need to hustle to make a living. And, there's very few bodybuilders that are, that are millionaires, and even the ones that are hustlers.
Yeah, for sure.
Like Lila Brada and Rich Gaspari and Jay Cutler.
Yeah, they're working all the time.
Yeah,
for sure.
And social media has probably changed things a lot, where there's a lot of opportunities to make money through social media that wasn't back in the day.
Right.
How about those young aspiring bodybuilders? What advice would you give to them today?
Well, listen to your contemporaries. Listen to your listen to people who've been there and done it. There are a lot of stubborn bodybuilders. I'm going to do it my way. All right. Well, you're not going to have as much success. I always listened. I always took feedback, and I was able to do that. I'm very lucky to have had a brother like I did, because he was very smart and he taught me the way early on. And we both went to college and studied exercise science and nutrition, and we were able to take a lot from that and moving forward. But there's little tricks of the trade from guys before me that have taught me. So as a young person, keep your ears open and your mouth shut.
Yeah, be trainable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, success leaves clues.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's a good one.
Yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel a lot. You just ask people who've done it. And have them show the way. I think a good coach is worth their weight in gold. Yeah, for sure.
Also, start small. I know so many people who come up and, hey, nice to meet you. I want to compete and I want to go to the Olympia, or I want to compete and win my pro card. I'm like, wait, you've never competed? No. Why are you talking about a pro card? Like, do you realize how difficult that is? You have to be top 2 in the nation in your division, and you're talking about a pro. How about we place in a local show? Think realistically, and it's like they think I'm trying to crush their dreams or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. I just want you to set realistic expectations.
Yeah.
So we can,
Build
everything
on
happens
that,
in steps. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
How has bodybuilding evolved over the past couple decades?
Oh, tremendously. So, for example, Ronnie Coleman, in his 8 Mr. Olympias, he made less than this year's Mr. Olympia made in the past 1 year.
Wow. That's crazy, right?
Yeah. So this guy he's made like 1.5 million in the past 12 months. And Ronnie only got like $100,000 per win. And that's 8 years. That's 800 grand.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Ronnie made a lot more than that in merchandise
Right.
and appearance fees and stuff like that. But that's a big change. You know, the promoters are finally starting to put big money into the shows. You know, winning $500,000 at one show is huge. The quality, I'm going to be honest, has gone down as a whole. And I'll probably catch a lot of flack for that, but it's just different. The whole league is watered down.
What do you attribute that to?
They're growing business. Money. Business means money, right? So they want to create an even playing field for more people to compete.
Yeah.
You
So
know-
they're creating different divisions.
Exactly.
Just like the one that they just created, right? With the, what is it? The
Fit model.
fit model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can argue one way or another for all these things. You could argue that I would have never been heard of if they never expanded and created a 212 division. I did compete in 2 open shows, and I did really well. And I did that for a reason, because I didn't want to be cornered into that
The 212.
212.
Yeah.
You know, all my friends within bodybuilding have respect for me for what I accomplished, and they know that I was good. I wasn't just a good 212er. But there's so many divisions that it is watered down. And that's the best I could say. But it does give a lot more people an opportunity to shine and to get on stage and compete and you know, maybe even face some fears. You know, that's one of the scariest things for most people is to get on stage in front of, like, I have a picture of me in front of the 11,000 fans at the Olympia. And it's a wild picture because it's from backstage and you can just see me and then all the people. Like,
It's crazy. Like a rock star, man.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But, it has changed a lot. Some for the better, obviously the financial part of it. There's not as much like traveling. There used to be, like, I never paid for a single flight, and I've been to all those countries I was talking about. And now today that wouldn't happen. The promoters wouldn't pay for, you know, unless it was someone like Jay Cutler or, you know. But I've been to Korea 5 times. I never spent a dime doing it. And, you know, that was an awesome time period for bodybuilding where there was just more competition. There were more stars, I should say. Right now, there's only like, you know, a handful of guys that are really, really popular. Where back then there was a lot.
Yeah.
And another big change is that 2 of the top 3 in the world in the open class are 212 guys.
Yeah, that's interesting, right?
Yeah. And before this year, the last 2 years in a row were won by former 212 guys, which is awesome. They're short, you know, 5'5", 5'6",
Yeah.
and managed to be the best in the world.
Yeah.
That's a big change. That's a good change.
It is a good change, yeah.
So, you know, sit back, and I know what you're going through, Bob. You know, right now you're a dentist. You went through your transformation. You're headed to the promised land of being on that stage.
I don't know if it's a promised land or whatever. Yeah.
So now I'm thinking that it makes me even try to think about more of what you've done that you're not doing a 45, 60-minute workout a day. You have workouts, you're doing everything you're putting together. But then you also have a 9 to 5. You're also doing, how do you balance that as you're trying to be the best in the world?
Well, I was lucky I made my own schedule. I had my own training business. So I would get up early in the morning, cook my food, bring it to work, get on the step mill for an hour. Then I'd immediately eat. I'd be sweating into my eggs and like eating, and then take a shower, change, and start training people. And I would usually make it so I would train people from like 7 to 1 or 7 to noon. And then I would have the middle of the day off. I would go home, I'd run errands, go to the bank, take a nap, eat a couple times, and then I'd go back at 4. So I would have like a 3, sometimes 4-hour break in the middle of the day and get stuff done. Go back, I would train a couple more people, and then do another hour of cardio before I went home.
So you're doing 2 hours of cardio.
And an hour of training.
An hour of training, 3 hours a day, yeah.
Yeah, at least 3.
Am I not telling you this is the same thing? Yeah. I'm trying
Sometimes it was 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'd have a client in the morning, like at, say, at 10 o'clock, that wanted me to train with them. They're like, come train back with me. And I'm like, so then I would split it up. I'd do, say, back in the morning and then arms in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So sometimes it would be 3 or 4 hours. But I was lucky, like I said, that I made my own schedule. And it was great. The greatest thing about it was that I worked throughout my career. I knew that, sponsorship money and all the winnings from shows and all that stuff was great, but it's not going to be here forever. So I continued working. A lot of guys don't work. They just diddle online. And, there's a big come to Jesus when the career's over. And there was really, the only transition I had to make is that I had a hip replacement and I was in pain and I was no longer invincible. I was getting older and the injuries were mounting up. But other than that, I still worked. I still had, a successful training business. So it was tough at times, but if I needed to, I could take time off, take a few days off. Whenever I traveled, obviously I couldn't work. But I would come home and go right back to work the next morning whenever I traveled. And it was great. I actually love what I do. I love the people I train. I love helping people and seeing people reach their goals that they never thought possible. And I love helping people compete and helping them avoid some of the mistakes that I made or I know that a beginner can make. So it's an easy job when you love what you're doing.
What's the biggest mistake you think you made early on? If you go back, you're like,
Well, at the Teen Nationals, we were in Fort Lauderdale. Stupidly went to the beach between prejudging and finals, and or was it? It might have even been the day before, and got a little bit of a sunburn. I didn't expect to get burnt.
Yeah,
and it gave my skin a weird color. And I would never, ever do that again. As I got into the pro level where everything counts, I wouldn't even go out in the sun. I would stay in my hotel room, eat my meals, pose. I'd only leave to go food shopping or something like that. But, that was probably the silliest thing. I've done a few, but one I could tell you, it didn't end up backfiring. It was the night before the 2007 USA's. All my buddies came to Vegas with me when I was competing. So we went out to dinner. We had a couple martinis, a couple cocktails, and I had to compete the next day.
Yeah, but you were probably nice and dry, though, right?
I was. Yeah. I ended up winning. But it was, I don't advise that, ever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Who's your top 5 of all time in bodybuilding?
Oof. It's pretty easy, actually. Ronnie, and not in any particular order. I don't like doing that. Ronnie, Arnold, Lee Haney, Phil Heath, Jay. The top 5 Mr. Olympias.
What do you think about Bumstead?
Well, he's a men's physique Mr. Olympia.
No, wasn't he classic?
Classic, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Classic. Yeah.
I love him. I
Yeah.
think he's incredible. He's a smart kid. I say kid, I think he's almost 30, or he's right around there. He's done so incredibly well on and off stage. Like, he carries himself as a parent you would hope your son would to be, you know?
Yeah.
He's a special kid, and his physique is incredible. He actually did an open bodybuilding show.
He just did one, right? Yeah.
And I could have had him winning. He placed second, but your eye just goes to him. It's like the other guy was great, bigger, thicker, but your eye zooms in on Bumstead. He's got that special ability. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's his, it's the genetics of his symmetry and everything.
Yeah,
it's just unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, and he works hard to get where he's at. He's got a huge platform. I think he has 25 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And the kids all know who he is, and he's got a huge reach. It's just, I love everything about him.
Yeah, I think he's good for bodybuilding.
Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
As a sport. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, so I'm not really necessarily a bodybuilder. I'm a guy who did a transformation, and I'm just trying to put a cherry on top of the thing, right? But Nate's got me doing a lot of stuff that you've talked about.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not, I've been doing my thing for 5 years, but it's mostly just cutting and lifting, and, it's not like trying to pack on mass and all that. The amount of attention to detail and the slowness of the whole thing, how do you stay focused on the long term, and continue to move up the mountain, so to speak?
You have to love it. You have to learn to love it. When you go to the gym, every single time I train or even do cardio, it starts out a little like, oh, my knees are a little creaky, everything. But once I'm warmed up, there's a certain moment in there where you're high. You get a high. The endorphins are kicking, it's a high. You're in a good mood, and you're like, I want to get high every day.
Yeah.
On that.
On life, yeah.
And I think that is one of the greatest ways to look at it is, we live in the Northeast. The year I won the Arnold Classic, we got 9 feet of snow in February.
I remember that year.
There were gyms that I couldn't get to. I would have to drive an hour to get a gym that was open. I'd have to shovel a foot of snow before I got in my car at 5 a.m. to go down and do cardio. But I loved it. And each day you build off of each day. If you look at that scale and it's going down and it's going down, it's working. Oh my God, it's working. It motivates you to want to do more and keep doing it. And if you can feel that high from when you're training, and even if it's just for a fleeting moment, it's worth it. And that's what you got to chase. Chase the pump.
Yeah.
Do you remember what Arnold said?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he said that. I did. Yeah. And the pumping iron. Yeah, for sure.
So it's very much like that. Even to this day, I love the feeling of even just doing cardio. I get on the bike and I'm riding. There's a moment in there where everything just starts to feel good.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing. If you do it for vanity, I mean, that's a certain motivation in itself, I guess, but it's never going to be as intense as if you truly love it and you love that feeling. I honestly never cared how I looked in the off season. I used to put on a lot of weight. Like I would compete at 210 and I'd be 250 within a month. And people are like, whoa, what are you doing? You're going to burst. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I want to feel good. I love training. That's my genetics. Like, I'm naturally a husky kid. So when I have 200 pounds of muscle stripped down, imagine the fluid and some fat coming back on me.
Yep.
It was, I was never embarrassed or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I was motivated by winning. by being the competitive person I am. That's what I wanted. All the other stuff, being in magazines, having contracts, making money, that was totally secondary. I never went out and spent stupidly and bought a Mercedes with new wheels and stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
I didn't. That didn't motivate me. I wanted to be able to buy a home, in a nice home, and love being home.
Yeah.
And that means more to me than a car with its a depreciating asset.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
Cars
right?
are the biggest waste of money. Actually,
Yeah.
I mean, I have that disease a little bit, right, of the car thing, but
Well, if you could swing it,
yeah,
swing it.
right. But it is a depreciating asset.
Yeah.
And the funny thing with the cars, right? Once you get it, it's great for the first, few months, and then it just becomes another car.
Yes, it's like women.
Yeah.
Jose, what's the one
Kidding.
lesson you can take away from your career?
Something I didn't take time to do was be more present. Like, enjoy it more. Breathe it in. I was so focused on the next thing, that I would literally, and I've spoken to people about this, there's almost a depression the day after the show.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Like, now
actually.
what?
Yeah.
Like, because you're focused on the Olympia, and then you kind of, you're like lost. You're like, well, what am I doing now? I mean, luckily I competed so much as a pro. I did 46 or 47 shows in 10 years. That's a lot.
That's a lot of prep, man.
Yeah, and so I always had something to look forward to. But I was working so hard, trying to be the best, that I was not a good self-promoter. Like, I'm not good at social media. I'm not, because of that. I don't like, I actually had someone running my social media for a period of time. They would just post pictures every day, and I thought that was so weird.
It's kind of like our generation, though.
Yeah.
You know, we're a little bit like, you wanted to have some substance, and I think the younger kids, they just put stuff up all the time.
Yeah. And a lot of it's fake. A lot of, you don't know what to believe on social media.
Perception.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I wasn't good at that. I wish I could have embraced that a little better, and learned how to do the social media stuff.
Well, you look at football, 16 games a year, basketball, 81, baseball, 162. You're looking at 46 competitions in 10 years, where other sports, they're talking thousands.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have a lot of time where you talk about that slow growth or those.
Yeah.
In our minds, we work with reinforcement
Yeah.
when we feel that we're making some progress, whatever. And sometimes it's that in-game moment or competition. So you have to really keep strong mentally to make that happen. In reach, because like you said, that game's over.
Yeah.
It may be 6 months to a year before your next competition.
Right. Well, I always made sure it was within a few months, because I would blow up. I was, I had the propensity of getting sloppy. So I would compete usually in March, and then September, all the way through like November. We would go on like a tour. I would go from Las Vegas to England to Korea, India, or Prague, and we would be all over the place. Then we'd come back home, go to Phoenix. It was a lot of shows right around the Olympia. But yeah, I did a good job in the last like 4 years of my career of keeping my weight reasonably close. Put on 20, 25 pounds. But again, I could lose 10 of that in the first week.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it was a great thing. I don't know.
You planning on being at the Arnold in a couple of weeks?
Nate and I were talking about that the other day. I'm not sure. Stuff gets expensive, especially
It's very expensive this year. Yeah.
when
for
I
sure.
leave work. So not only am I spending money there, I'm losing money here. So it's a double whammy.
Yeah. I got you.
So I'm not sure yet. I'm as of right now, I'm saying no.
Yeah, that's kind of a bucket list thing for me, and I'm still undecided as whether or not I'm going to go or not. But
Yeah.
but it is. I was looking at the to get like the full access is pretty expensive.
Yeah, plus flights, and
Yeah,
hotel.
for sure.
Usually when I would go, I would work for like muscular development or something. And they would pay for my flight or
Yeah,
in hotel, and it was great. Or if a sponsor wanted me there, they would pay for everything. And usually I could get a like a press pass or something
Yep.
to go to the show. But flying there, missing work, it's not right now.
it's
I
a
don't
lot,
think so.
yeah.
It's a slow time of year too. People think like, oh, the gyms must be packed. I'm like, yeah, the new members are busy, but people training that train year
they're in
round,
the winter arc right now.
right,
Yeah.
right, or they're spending time with family.
Yeah.
They're they get work off. They take time off. Whatever. It's not as busy right now as you'd think.
Yeah.
So I like to stick around and get as much as I can.
What's your favorite part of being a coach?
Like I said, is helping people and watching people blossom. Like Nate, for example.
Yeah.
I knew within the first few weeks of working with him that he was going to be really good. And, his girlfriend, Christine,
Yep.
bought him like 3 sessions with me for Christmas. And he just wanted a spark. He just wanted some motivation. And Nate is a hard worker. He just wanted to do something next level and see if he could handle it. And after the first 3 sessions, he's like, I'm hooked. We're doing this. And I'm like, listen, why don't you do the show with Christine? And he's like, man, I don't know, And I'm like, no, you can do it. I'm going to help you, and you're going to do well. Because I'm telling you, within a few weeks, he started growing. Like his, everything was getting rounder and fuller. And I'm looking at him like, dude, that's rare. Like he's got some special genetics. Like,
Yeah.
and he was only like, I don't know, he competed at like 185 or something. So he did the classic physique and light heavyweight. He won the classic and he was second as a light heavy. And then we just decided to keep going. And it was obvious he couldn't do classic anymore. He was just growing at a really rapid pace. So then after like coming this close, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. We're going to go in as a heavyweight, whether you're 201 or 199, because that's where he looked the best. We kept trying to hold it and then suck him down to light heavy, which is like 198, 197. And he was too thin. It wasn't his best look. When we brought him in as a lighter heavyweight, that's when he won. And he was just awesome. So that is the most joy I get out of coaching, is seeing people go from okay to very, very good. And implementing my techniques, my ideas, and having them trust me. I'm like, just trust me. It's hard to trust people, like especially if you don't know yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm seeing something right now that you don't see. And you got to trust me. I think this is going to work. And lo and behold, most of the time it does. I've had so many of my clients like win the overall at the Cutler, at the New England's. Not just win, but win the overall. And it's been like consecutive years.
Yeah.
And that brings me joy. Like seeing someone struggle and then like giving them the key to victory. And they forever appreciate it.
Of course.
They become friends oftentimes,
Yeah.
Very good people, and that's rewarding in itself to me.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. What's the future hold for Jose Raymond?
Well, more training, more clients, more coaching, more of everything. I just got to get better at it. I want to continue to improve, excel, and bring the best version of me possible. I may be 50, but 50's young in the whole scheme of things. There's a whole lot more to learn.
Yeah.
I certainly don't know everything.
Yeah.
And I look forward to learning more and getting that information out and helping people. And reading that book.
Oh, yeah.
Becoming Undeniable.
Yeah, Becoming Undeniable. It releases next weekend, right?
Yeah, it does. We're
Awesome.
Yeah. Jose has a pre-release copy already. So, hopefully you enjoy it. It's actually not for someone like yourself necessarily, but it's a compelling story, and hopefully it will inspire some people to make a change in their life and be a little bit healthier.
Yeah,
right?
I love that.
So
the fact that you lost 200 pounds is inspiring alone. That's not easy. I know you're doing the bodybuilding thing now. And when you said that earlier, I'm not a bodybuilder. I think all of us are bodybuilders. Ultimately, what we try to do is fuel ourselves with the best food possible to be able to train hard and to change your body.
Yeah.
You're building your body. You're a bodybuilder.
Yeah, there you go.
And if more people in the gym lived that lifestyle of eating and training and being consistent, they would reach their goals a lot faster. But, I don't want to train like a bodybuilder. I don't want to do that bodybuilding thing. Well, listen, you're a 60-year-old woman. You're not going to look like Arnold.
Actually, it says that in the book. We talk about, progressive overload and adding muscle and all that, and how a lot of ladies think that they're going to look at a weight and become Arnold Schwarzenegger overnight. And I'm like, it's just not going to happen. No. You don't have the machinery at all. It's
all the same principles, though.
Yeah, for sure.
I train, a 60-year-old lady the same way I train a 22-year-old guy.
Yeah.
And push them to their max to make them improve.
Yep.
Stress the nervous system so they get used to it. Sometimes those workouts are brutal.
No kidding.
Right? And you're shaking afterwards.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so some of the stuff Nate has me doing is from your DNA.
Most of it.
Yeah, right? So, those 444, sets of everything. Yeah. Oh, man, that's rough.
It's
rough
torture.
Stuff.
I had to discover a way when I got older in my career. I competed till I was 44. And eventually my knees and hips, joints started taking a beating. You can't just continually add more weight and more weight and more weight.
It's more time under tension, really.
Right. So I was finding ways to stress my muscles without adding more weight. And I was doing that by doing those pause reps and then the ballistic reps and then the pause reps and making the set last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So now 300 pounds feels like 400 pounds.
Right.
And it is a different way of stressing the muscle, but it's ultimately overloading. So I was able to grow continuously into my 40s.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, since I started implementing, what Nate told me to do, I definitely have grown.
No doubt.
For sure.
Yeah.
And if you look at the before and afters of just from August till now, there's significant change.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm just I'm looking forward to seeing what's underneath everything,
Yeah.
Getting it all off and
well, I already saw a picture. Your legs look great. I think you can even get better than that.
All right.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Yeah, you'll beat that.
All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Jose, this has been amazing, man. How can people reach out?
You can reach out to me on Instagram, the Boston Mass, THEE Boston Mass. My Facebook was hacked.
Ugh.
I feel so dirty. It's like this person is trying to run a Bitcoin scam on my followers. And every day they're posting pictures of like a new car that I supposedly bought, a G-Wagon, a piece of land that I bought, a new house, a gym. And, real friends of mine are on there like, congrats, people that are the closest to me are laughing. They're writing, if you know Jose, he can't even spell Bitcoin. And I know nothing about crypto, anything. Yet I'm getting text messages, bro, can you help me with this? I'm like, oh, man. And I can't get it back. Facebook is not good at helping.
Yeah.
I've tried everything, and it's not working.
It's like the modern day episode of Candid Camera.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to see what you can't make it up.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But that's it. You can reach me on Instagram. for if you need any help with coaching, training, anything. I'm available.
Yeah, Jose's a great guy. I've got to know him over the past few months, and yeah, man, this has been awesome. Dennis, what do you got?
You overcome adversity at a very young age, and you do not have the word quit in your vocabulary, and you have utilized it to not only become the best version of yourself or continue to become the best version, but you're changing lives every day in everything that you do. And what a powerful message to people. Honor and pleasure to have you on the show.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Pleasure's all mine.
Yeah, Dennis.
Go time.
It's go time.